But here we go, I'm recording. Oh, I'm gonna read this. A recording has been started. Recording videos with Ustream is easy. The recording timer on the stream monitor shows you how long you've been recording. You may stop recording at any time by clicking the stop record button. When you stop recording, the system will save your video and you can decide how to name it, what the descriptions and tags should be, and who can access the recording. Well, that's great. In the meantime, I am going to say, what's up, you guys? My name is Kuya Paul, and this is Embrace the Stains Talk Radio. Pause for edit. What's up? I can't say that name. Erte. Hello, Erte. I'm sorry if I'm saying your name wrong, man. Or woman, I don't know. But thanks for coming. Just to let you guys know, Embrace the Stains, it's a talk radio forum where I use all the knowledge that I've learned throughout the years, both in youth ministry as well as art and worship. And basically, it's just kind of an advice column. If you guys have any questions, definitely throw it up in the chat and social stream. There's also my email. So you can throw it up on the email, ETSRevolution@gmail.com. That's ETSRevolution@gmail.com. You could also throw questions there later on for future broadcasts. If you do have any questions as well that you think you'd want answered actually online, or if you want them privately answered, I don't mind that as well too. Just go ahead and drop me an email. Just let me know. Don't put this online. Go ahead and just give me the answer, or maybe give me some advice. So a lot of the advice, once again, goes with the youth ministry, anything that you're going on in youth, in terms of relationships, in terms of your peers, your school, developing your career, anything like that. But also, it's really embracing the things also in art and culture and everything else that God's putting in your heart, especially within your church, especially within worship, especially within the gifts and talents that He's given you. And I've been able to meet some really incredible artists, anywhere from hip-hop artists, painters, graffiti artists, basically you name it, I met them. I even met martial artists, which is really cool. And I've learned so much from them, and they've taught me so much, and I've also gotten to give them some great advice on everything else as well. So thank you once again for jumping in. Thank you for actually looking in. And again, if you have any questions, go ahead, just put it on the social stream, or ETSRevolution@gmail.com. We'll be able to answer your questions either in this stream or a stream coming up. So I usually open the time for some questions, but today what I wanted to do, at least first, before we get going, is I didn't want to approach basically a question that's kind of been on my heart. And it's a question that actually goes a different direction from last week. Now, if you've seen last week's videos, and it is on, some of them are online. You can just look up on YouTube Embrace the Stains. You can also go into the previous broadcasts from here, and you can go ahead and see those. But we did talk a little bit more about youth last time, answered some questions, asked a lot of questions, and basically just opened the forum for anyone else that had questions about who they are in God, in terms of their youth, in terms of upbringing, in terms of their teen years. I wanted to talk about artists, though. I really wanted to talk about arts. I really wanted to talk about how I got into art as well, too. And I kind of wanted to put that all into one big perspective question, which is basically, what makes an artist? So it's something that I actually had to really delve into in my search for the past couple of years. And just to give you a little background about me, my name again is Kuya Paul. Kuya means big brother, and as big brother, I have been able to be a big brother in terms of the youth groups that I've been serving at for the past almost 2 decades worth. Ever since I was 16, I was in youth ministry, been able to serve one of my first youth groups. I was the youngest youth, and I was also the leader of the youth group. I think I was even about 15, 16 years old, and I was already counseling people who in their 20s, 21, 22, 23 years old. I was already counseling them in their life. I actually got to meet one of the youth that I was ministering to back in my parents' church, actually, here in Covina. Shout-outs to Life Christian Fellowship and Life Christian Fellowship Youth. If you guys are on, if you guys are watching, Glad you guys are on. It's actually I think it's your other Kuya Paul, or Kuya Paul. He used to be one of my youth back in the day, although he was around 20-ish as and it was really great. It was awesome to actually live in that. So from then on, youth ministry has always been my heart. At the same token, my parents actually, when they became Christian, the biggest thing that they loved was worship ministry. So they became worship ministers very quickly, probably because they loved music so much. My dad was a disco king. I mean, seriously, I still have pictures of him with super big fros and powder blue not zoot suits, leisure suits. Oh my gosh, it's so incredibly funny, but also really cool knowing my dad was just kind of a baller back in the day. My mom loved Madonna, MJ before they became Christian, and years after they became Christian. All you hear on 8-track, and I said it, 8-track. All you heard on the 8-track was just ongoing MJ and Madonna all day long, until it got replaced with people like Ron Canoli, Don Moen, um, man, Vineyard Music, Hill Songs, things like that. After it got all replaced by all that stuff. So it was really great. I was basically living these two great lives, both within the youth ministry, but also in worship, also within the arts as well too, within the church. So I got to grow up in that all the way from when I was 16, and I just grew into, of course, the age I am now. And if you know my age, that's great. If you don't know my age, it's none of your business. No, I'm 30. I may not look 30 because I'm Asian. That's cool. I love being Asian. I love being Filipino in particular. And maybe at the end of this whole thing, maybe I'll throw one of my poems. Actually, it's actually called "Because I'm Asian." So it was kind of my whole tribute to being Asian. It's very stereotypical, but I can be stereotypical because I'm Asian. So, in I'm getting ahead of myself. So that was a part of who I was. Now, getting back to the question that I wanted to ask, what makes you an artist? So I've been doing youth ministry for a very long time, and for at least the last 4 to 5 years was actually a very interesting experience for me. During this time, I was going through a lot of troubles with the church that I was with. I'm not going to say the name. Don't need to know. But it was just conflicts within the leadership, within myself, within working with people. And I'll be the first to say that there was a lot of conflicts within me, within serving, within serving the people above me, the covering that God has given me. At the same time, I was conflicted by this really big thing. And it was this idea about art. During this time, I was really jumping in to several things actually within my life. Uh, and it was consistent of art. It was consistent of going into the different ministries that God had called me in terms of art. I had a really great friend who hopefully is in the crowd right now. And he's actually a very very aspiring hip hop artist. I've been able to help him for the past how many years now? Almost what, 2 years? In terms of being his percussionist, but he was the one that actually kind of helped me delve into that side, and it's a side I have never seen before. It's a side of art and worship in the church that I've never seen. Because again, I grew up in in the church in terms of worship. Now, I wasn't born a Christian. I accepted the Lord at a very young age, about 7 years old. But everything that I knew about culture, about arts, everything, um, about everything in terms of art, was very sheltered within the church. When I thought of worship, I thought piano, drums, guitar, singers, backup, worship leader. That's what I thought. Uh, and I always equated worship as to that. We'd always go into kind of tangents like, oh, there's also performance singing, like solo singing. There would also be some dance, but it's usually consistent of, of of banners and flags as well as tambourine. And you've probably seen this in some of the more traditional churches. That's what they do. That's what I thought worship was these particular elements. Now going and being with my friend who at the time was actually part of the youth group. He was one of my youth, and later on became the youth director of that youth group. I got to follow him into these other places, where worship was happening, but it was happening in a different way. Particularly at that time, it was spoken word and hip hop, which I've never seen, never ever seen it. I've never really seen a spoken word artist. I've never really seen hip hop the way he described it, and I knew the, the whole way through that he was aspiring to be a hip hop artist for God, changing the way that he was before into something that pleased the Lord. But I didn't know that there was already this atmosphere. If you don't want me saying this, I didn't know there was another. There's this like side culture within the church that was already doing it. So that conflicted in me because I didn't know that there was another side. And it's not that I wanted to battle it. I actually wanted to embrace it. But then there was a conflict between, well, this is where I see our church going. This is where I see worship going. This is the new element that God is kind of introducing. And I came from a time when introduction to new things was also a big deal. One of the biggest things that I always talk about is my dad. My dad is a worship leader. He's been a worship leader ever since the 80s, like late 80s, 87, 88. He was already aspiring to be a worship leader within the church. He was trained by really incredible people within Jesus is Lord Ministry. Is this actually a really big church and congregation within the Philippines? If you ever look them up, JIL, Jesus is Lord. A lot of the worship leaders from there actually trained my dad, and that's where he learned how to worship, how to really give glory to God. What was really great about my dad too, though, was he was a disco kid, and a lot of that did not leave him. He'd be the one jumping up and down. He'd be the one dancing on stage. He'd be the one just shouting out loud, and he was just really a great worshiper. And there was one time when he did it, he sang the song. I'll never forget it because the song is now a children's song, and it was Mighty Is Our God. So I'll sing a little bit of it. I can kind of sing, so you'll forgive me if you don't like my voice, but it's like it's okay. I'm in tune, I guess. But it goes, Mighty is our God, mighty is our King, mighty is our Lord, ruler of everything. And he'd sing that song. And at the same time, at the end of the service, the pastor of the church actually went up to him and said, "You can't sing that song." And he was like, "Why can't I sing that song?" He's like, "No, you can't sing it. It's too disco. It's too rock." It was so funny because now it's a children's song. Now, if you look at contemporary Christian music, and it was something that I actually tackled last week, was like, well, what's wrong with contemporary Christian music? Nothing. It's Christian rock, but it was something that as artists, as my dad being a worshiper, but also kind of being that artist in that sense. Even he didn't know. It's like, what's the conflict? The worship of God is still there, the passion, the drive, but in the way that my voice and my body was made to worship Him, and it was new. It was new to the church. I talk a little bit about innovation in some of my writings that I've done. By the way, just letting you guys know, I had recently wrote a book. I'm getting it published. Definitely could use the prayers, and definitely am planning some things actually in terms of publishing it and letting you guys know more about it. But one of the things that I wrote was the whole idea of innovation. Now, with God, there's nothing that's innovative. If you think about it, nothing's innovative to God. God made everything. So nothing surprises Him. Absolutely nothing surprises God because He made everything. Everything that was made now, everything that's going to be made in the future. And that also entails the idea of different mediums of worship. Now, I don't say worship in itself. The whole idea about worship, and if you're a Christian, you'll kind of wonder, like, well, what's worship? Worship is basically adoration unto God. It's your heart unto God, just speaking unto God, and showing how much you love Him, and also showing how important He is. Now, I can go all day in terms of worship, but that's the basis, the basic foundation, is just showing how much you love God. And one of the ways back in the day for my dad was to sing a song that sounded like a disco/rock song. Nowadays, it is more. You still have that Christian rock. We call it contemporary Christian music. It's Christian rock, and we also have Christian R&B, Christian hip hop, Christian gospel. We have we have artists coming up like artists in graffiti and graphic design. We have spoken word artists. That's in my heart right now because I love poetry. I love writing it. I love hearing it. I love reciting it. I'm trying to memorize it. But I love it. I love those aspects, and these are all part of worship. And it kind of conflicted me at this time when I was thinking about when I was thinking about, well, I've been worshiping God this whole time in my church. I've been worshiping God this certain way. I've been worshiping God with the drums, with the keyboard, with that, with this, with that, with every element that I'm used to. But I've never seen God worship in this, and the worship was there. So it became a conflict, and at the time, I didn't know what to do with it. I didn't think I had the talent for it, and this is where I get what makes an artist. So since I didn't have the talent for it, I didn't think I had the talent for it. I became so conflicted. It's like God wants me to do so many great things, and this is when He was really speaking to me in terms of what I'm doing right now, and speaking to youth, young adults, and speaking to their heart for the arts and for worship. And He was putting all this stuff in my heart. It's like you need to speak on this. You need to teach people about this. I'm like, God, how can I do that? I'm not even an artist. I'm not even this person that you can use because I don't have any experience. Not far, far be it from me to question God, but at the same time, you know what? He had another plan, and I didn't know it back then. So with all these conflicts, it just came to a point where I just stepped down from the ministry. And if you knew me back then, from 16 years old until what 4 or 5 years ago, I was what 26, 27. I don't step down. I look for other ministries to serve. I look for other ways to serve. I never just straight up stepped down from all ministry. And I can tell you right now, it was been maybe a year, maybe almost 18 months. From that time when I stepped down to the time where I took up ministry again, it was a very long time for me. I didn't take any more ministries within the church. And I wanted to explore this whole idea. Because, again, I thought worship was these elements. I thought worship was just this. And even though instinctively I knew worship could be so much more, and even though my parents would also teach me that worship is not just is not the instruments, it's not the singing on stage, but it's your life. Something in me wanted to wanted to wanted to prove that, wanted to find it, wanted to step away from what I was used to make sure that these things that I've learned for all these years were really true. The thing is, I've been able to go in I'd even teach my youth. It's like, no, worship is every day. Worship is your life, but I wouldn't really live it. That was the truth. I would I would teach my youth this is what worship is. But in my life, in terms of pursuing God with all my heart, soul, mind, and strength, in terms of art at least, in terms of the art form that He gave me, I wouldn't pursue it because I denied it. I just thought, and I told this to I told this to my friend one time. I thought I was gonna be and because I'm a nerd, I use this reference. I thought I was Professor Xavier. I thought I'm just made to teach you guys, but I'm not made to do it myself. And if you know anything about the X-Men, there's like everyone everyone like Wolverine and Storm and Rogue and whatever, all these really great heroes that have all these special powers, and then there's like the guy in the wheelchair. I always thought I was the guy in the wheelchair. I have one really great power, but I'm not meant to be on the limelight. I'm not meant to be in the front stage, and unbeknownst to me, God had something else greater. But I digress with that. I want to go back and just say I stepped down, and it took about 18 months, about a year and a half, just not doing any church ministry. Now during this time, I was talking to my friend again, who's the hip hop artist who, at the time, he actually recently got signed to a really great record company, God Given record company, with a really great person to mentor him in terms of his craft. And during this time, he was actually helping me. Now, before I used to be his kuya, I used to be his big brother within the group, and I would teach, of course, every Friday. I would teach a lesson, but it was so weird because it was as if we had changed roles. So instead of me talking to him and pouring out my heart to him, it was as if we kind of changed, and he started coming up to me and teaching me all these things. And it was a trip. Like, for me, it was a trip, because when I'd actually go to him, he pours stuff out of me just from questions I asked. It's like, what do you think if I wrote a poem? He said, just do it. Write a poem. Just write it. Just write one. Go ahead and write. I'd read it. I told him one time, actually, say, I would love if I could like sing somewhere on your record. And it was really cool because he said right at that moment, he said, you know what, I've always been wanting to ask you. And a week later, he said, I want you to be. I'm going to be releasing releasing an EP, and I want you on the last track, you and the rest of our friends. And I was so privileged to even just hear that. I started to delve within art that I never knew I had. It started with singing. It started actually with a sketchbook too. So what I do is I'd actually open up, and I would buy like notebooks, and I just kind of like sketch or do whatever. I never really took them seriously. And I do this throughout my life until finally I just said, you know what, I'm going to keep this one, and I'm going to work on it. So started sketching. I actually got pretty good at it, and got really good at sketch art. And from there, it just got better and better and better until one day it just kind of flipped, and I wanted to do something else. I wanted to write. I wanted to make lyrics and poetry and spoken word. At the same time, also, when he had called me into to sing, my friend on his track, just something started to break. It didn't break then, and I know it full well because I couldn't get everything out that I wanted to get out on the track that he wanted. At the same time, something was starting to break. I was starting to realize something that was within me. Now, before I continue, I wanted to remind you guys the question that I am attempting to answer for you guys, at least with the testimony of my life, is what makes an artist. Because at this time, that was the question I was asking. What makes me an artist? I would seriously deny that idea. Seriously deny the fact that like I was an artist. I would look at other artists. I would look at other people who had supremely good talents, and I tell God, almost as if I was telling you face to face, God, I don't have that stuff. I don't have the things that make you an artist. I don't have the things that get highlighted. I don't have that kind of talent. I can't draw on an audience like that. I can't motivate like that. And the more I'd say what I couldn't do, the more God showed me what I was made to do. You guys get that? It's the whole it's the old youth leader in me that makes me want to repeat that. But did you get it? The more I showed God what I couldn't do, the more God showed me what I was made to do. And I embraced it. I said, God, that's fine then. Then start pouring out. And there was a point, and it's starting to trickle right now, but I think it's only because I haven't practiced it in a while. But there were times where I'd actually just sit down in some of my favorite spots. Some of my favorite spots, by the way, if you're in the Glendale area or LA area, I love going to the Americana. I don't go there as often as I'd like, but it's definitely a place where I call it my muse. Like back in the day, people would get muses. Like usually, I don't know why it was, but usually it was like women, or it's like to motivate an artist to actually continue to write. For me, it's the Americana, it's Glendale. It's something about that city that makes me want to write. So I'd actually go down there, and I just open up my notebook to a blank page. I make sure there was enough pages after it for the poem to be fully written. I'd put my pen down, and I didn't even have an idea to write about. I just start writing, and the sentence became a stanza. The stanza became a rhythmic pattern that continued on for 2 pages, and after 2 or 3, 4, 5 pages, I made a poem. And I was like, where did I would literally, there were times where I'd literally jump out of my seat and say, God, where did I come from? I don't even know. Where did I come from? I don't even know where this came from. But it's a poem. It's like not even, it's a poem that not only, like when I read it, it wasn't just lines on a page, but it was like my life was on paper. It was weird. It was cool. It was weird. And I keep doing it. There was a point actually within that time too when I went up to my friend again, who's a rap artist, and I tell him, I want to write a book. And I told him years before when we first met, I told him that one day I did want to write a book, and I had a couple ideas for it, and I told him again, I've always wanted to write a book. He's the one who reminded me. It's like, didn't you want to? And he reiterated a promise. He told me a promise again that I haven't heard in a long time. But when I first told him years ago that I wanted to write a book, he said, if you wrote a book, I'd read it. And he said it to me again. It's like, I still have the same promise. If you write a book, I'll be the first one to read it. So that kind of motivated me. It's like, maybe I should write one then. So I started praying to God. I remember I was driving to LA to work, and I worked pretty far back then. I actually worked in Silmar, so I had a pretty long drive coming from San Gabriel Valley. So going over to work, I actually asked God, what do you want me to write about? Or what do you want me to write about? And the only thing that came to mind is like all the things that I'm starting to experience, all the ideas of worship in my eyes that started to change. Again, worship itself is not changing. Worship itself is not changing, but the mediums that are being used are becoming different just because the times are changing, the generations are changing. And I started to write about that. And I continued to write about it, and yeah, definitely my focus was to the church because at the time I was a little frustrated. I If it's okay for me to say, I was a little mad because I was frustrated on the things that wouldn't work out when I was in church, and I was frustrated at the fact that I didn't understand where God was leading. So a couple of the first chapters were really out of frustration, but as I continued to write within the next year, I started to realize that it's me that I'm writing about, that is my life I'm writing about. So the book that I was writing didn't become like a little self-help book, like a little, like 10 things you need to do to accept. No, it wasn't that. It was me writing my heart to what I learned. Became a memoir, which became it became a masterpiece, God's masterpiece of my life so far. It was really cool, and I do pray one day that you guys are able to read it. And again, I'm working right now actually to get it published. But that was my biggest heart. It's like I really wanted to just write, and I didn't know that I had a talent with it. I didn't know I had a talent about it, and I continued for about 3 years, and I've been writing both in my book. I've actually started a new book. I've continually done blogs. That's hopefully in the next few months you're going to be seeing actually on my site as well too. And I continue to write poetry at least once a week, writing one poem after another, just to continue on with this thing that God has really called me to do. And I didn't know where it came from. I really don't know where it came from other than it came from God. But I want to flip that even more. Because, again, the question is, what makes an artist? I didn't know. I didn't know that deep inside of me, I was an artist. That God made me to be that. And it took me 2 years of an emotional walk through the desert where I had literally nothing to finally realize who I really was. Uh, I it, it it took me so long to find out. It took me like, well, how old I am now. I'm 30 years old. And it took me so long to figure out all these things about my life that I didn't know I knew about myself. And it took that walk. It took those almost 3 years now of just realizing who I really was and realizing who I am as an artist. Now, I'm going to flip that because you guys are jumping on and you guys are reading what makes an artist. What makes you an artist? Well, I can tell you what made me an artist. Okay. The cheesy Christian answer, God makes you an artist. That's a cheesy Christian answer, but let's dive deep into it. Because for me, it's true. God made me an artist. I didn't know. I really didn't know. I really didn't know that I was made to write poetry, to write blogs and inspirational words, to be a photographer. Photography actually it just seeped in around these 3 years too, where I was able to take pictures, to capture. I'd always say I, I like photography because I'm not making new artwork. I'm I'm capturing the artwork of a current master. I'm capturing the artwork of a great artist. That's all I'm doing. I'm not making the art piece. I'm only capturing a piece of that work. And it's God's work. I'm only capturing God's work. That's why I love taking really cool pictures. Pictures that people don't always see, because I feel like it's not me. I don't think I have good pictures. I think God has a good creation. I'm just capturing an element of it so you guys can enjoy it. So with that, I and all the things that God has called me to, it's true. God makes you an artist. And I would even say this for people who are just thinking about, well, am I an artist or not? Are you looking for definition? You know who you're going to find definition from? You're going to find it from God. Because God has made all of us into a master work. The book of Ephesians says that we are God's masterpiece, created in Christ Jesus to do good works that He prepared us beforehand for us. So we're already made to do something really great. We are already created as a masterpiece. But the trick is to find out what kind of masterpiece God made you to be. Took me 30 years, and I'm still learning. I'm actually going back to school because I feel like there's something else deep inside me, God, that you are trying to do. I don't see. I still don't see it. I'm actually going to go back to school just to find out a little bit more about it, just to find an inkling, just a piece of what I'm still missing in terms of the artwork that you've made me out to be. I know there's still so much more. And I know there's so much more in you guys too. I know that if you've gotten this far within the recording, I know it's a very long recording. I know a lot of people don't, oh, I don't like watching recordings this long. That's fine. Hopefully I can piece this thing together in like something that's a little bit smaller. But if you took the time to actually read, like hear this far, I want to tell you right now, even if you're searching to see whether you're an artist, if you're looking for recognition, if you're looking for, I just want someone to recognize me as an artist, or maybe you don't think you are. I'm going to tell you right now, you are already a masterpiece. You just have to figure out what kind of masterpiece you are and for what purpose. The two things that God taught me in these last 3 years is that we need to find out two things in our life in order to complete the work that God wants us to complete. Number one, we need to find out who we are. We need to find out our identity, and identity is so important, super important. If you don't know who you are, if you don't know why you're made, if you don't know how you're made and who made you and why and what makes you so special, you're going to miss out a lot in your life. But if you can figure that out, then you're going to find out something about yourself, something that will help you for the rest of your life, that so many people, a predominant portion of our population, so many people never figure it out. But if you can figure out who you are, and the one main thing that you need to figure out is that you are a child of God. As long as you accept Him as your Lord and Savior within your heart, you are an adopted son, adopted daughter of God. You're blessed already. You're already blessed. But the second thing, other than finding out who you are, is finding out what you were made for. And I feel in my heart we're all made for epic moments. I love using that word epic too. So much so that I'm using it as kind of the draw for my next book, because I feel like in the next few months, in the next few years, God's going to do something epic in my life, this epic adventure that He has in store for me. But God has called us all to something epic. What is your epic? What is your point in your life that you are made for? What is, it might not even be a point. It might be several years of work and toil and anguish to finally figure out the work of God that He's called you to be, but we're all called to a work. We're all called to do something. Maybe you're called to be a really great artist. to bless so many people with your artwork or with your recordings or with your songs. Maybe you were made to be a great mother to your children so you can bring up a generation and be an example to a generation as well that have not had great mothers or great fathers if you're called to be a father. Maybe you're made to be a great businessman so you can continue to accumulate your the wealth, be a good steward of that wealth, and continue to pass it on to different ministries that need it, and not be stingy about it, and not be, and I don't know if this is proper to say, but not be a prick about it, but to continue to pass on that blessing to everyone else around you, so that the work of God can continue to be done, whether it's in churches or other businesses or all around the world in different nations. Maybe you were called to be a dancer. Maybe you're called to continue your art form within dance, to be the best dancer that God has called you to be, so that your work and your art, whatever it may be, whatever dance routine that you may be doing, will touch the lives of someone one day, so that either they're called to be a dancer, or they're called to serve God because they see your art, or both. They're called to serve God and to be a dancer. That's the ideal. Maybe you're you may be called to so many different things. I can go on, but how do you know? You're called. What makes you an artist? God does. It's up to you to find out what kind of artwork you are. And the person that knows, again, is God, because He's the one who made you. He's the one who loved you so much that He intricately, with precision, with with thoughts. He didn't just manufacture you. He engineered you to do great works. You are His masterpiece. That's what makes you an artist. That's what makes you an artwork. And I love how a lot of artists out there, actually, a lot of Christian artists actually talk about it, that I'm not the artist, I'm the canvas. That was quoted by one of my favorites, spoken word rap artist, Propaganda. Love that guy. What was really great in what he said is it's right. We are a masterpiece work, but we're made for a purpose. You and your life are a masterpiece work. You're already an art piece. But in terms of the stewardship as an artist, what makes you an artist? God does. He knows why you were made. He knows what makes you you. And He will continue to pour out into you until you figure that out. The most important thing about that is you're not going to find that kind of recognition anywhere else. You'll only find it in God. You'll only find it in Him. You'll only find it in seeking Him, in reading the Word, in going around to people that have also been in the Word, your accountability, your peers, your mentors within the Word, and having them pour into you the things that they see in you. If you don't have that kind of person, find a mentor. Go to your local church, find someone that you trust. Go to your friends and family, ask them, so what makes me me? What makes me tick? If you think about me, I didn't even know that, like, going back to school in terms of like seminary and going back and one day maybe possibly being a pastor. I didn't know. My family was just like, you know what, that makes sense. They didn't say it was like, oh, but school's expensive. Oh, but this. The first thing they said is like, you're going back to school to be a pastor? That makes sense for you. That actually does fit who you are. And I have nothing bad to say about that, because I feel like that's what God has called you. God has made you for that purpose. There's so many places that you can get it, but number one, of course, is going to be God. Going into His Word, praying, seeking Him. What makes you an artist? If you want to be an artist, if you want to be made into an artist, you go to the artist himself, the one who made you first. And then you find out, God, how did you make me? That's what I did. It took me 3 years. And I don't know how long it'll take you, but I want to say right now, and I want to pray right now, God, just pour out into the people that are listening to this right now. Even if people never really do, I hope people do, but it's okay. But I really pray that they really seek you in terms of finding out who they are in God, who they are in you, who they are in terms of being an artist. If they're called to an artwork and an art form, Lord, God, I just pray that you build it up in them, that you show them that they were beautifully and wonderfully made, and they were made for a purpose, made for a reason, made intricately, not manufactured, but engineered with precision to do good works that you've called them to do. So I pray that for all of you guys who have been able to listen this far. Um, and if you're watching this online, if you're watching the pre-recording, thank you for watching. And I really do pray for each and every one of you. Again, if you have any questions, if you have anything at all in terms of, well, like now that I'm seeking God, now that I know I need to seek God, what's the next step? How do I develop my art? How do I know what kind of art form is for me? What if I'm a rap artist? Where do I get more information on that? What if I'm a dancer? Where do I get more information about that? What are the things that I need to know? We'll talk about those things, definitely. But the first step is to really dedicate your life and say, God, you're the artist, I'm the canvas. You made me into a master work. And in order for me to develop as an artist as well, too, if you really made me into an artist, which you did, if you made me into an artist, please, God, tell me what kind of artist you made me out to be. So that's where it starts. And again, if you have any questions, you can come to me. Again, my email address is ETSRevolution@gmail.com. That's ETSRevolution@gmail.com. You can go ahead and put it onto there. Email me. I will do my best to answer any questions that you guys might have in terms of your own artwork, in terms of your own seeking of what God's doing in your life. If you have any questions just about your life, I mean, maybe you're going great, but maybe life itself, just in general. Maybe you're a really good artist, but just life is just pouring down in you. Let's talk. Let's bring it all together, so that we can continue to do the great work that He's called us to do. Let's solve these problems. Let's solve these different things and the sin that easily entangles, and let's just run the race. And that's what God says in His Word. It's like there's these things that hinder. Let's do our best to take the hindrances out and the things that entangle us, and just run the race with endurance. And that's what I'm here for. I'm going to continue to do these streams at least once a week, hopefully twice a week, as I develop my whole way of actually doing this, and hopefully a schedule as well too. In the meantime, just continue to like, favorite the videos that you see on Facebook. Continue to go on my Facebook as well too. More than one to follow me on Facebook. Right now, I do have my personal on right now. I'll be going to the ETS one, the promotional one soon as well. But just be my friend, and we can talk there as well too, and we'll go from there. But in the meantime, I hope this has helped. I really do hope and pray that just talking about all these things, talking about becoming an artist, talking about the struggles that go to actually finding out who you are, they're great struggles, and I don't regret any one of the struggles I had to go through in the last 3 years. I embrace it. I embrace the stains. What? Because they're not stains. They're not mistakes. They're brushstrokes for the masterpiece that God has called my life. That's what they are. So I embrace every stain, knowing that it's just a part of the masterwork that God has called me to be. So I pray that that's the same thing for you guys too. So take care. God bless. Thank you guys for jumping on to the stream. I really do appreciate it. And again, if you have any questions, ETSrevolution@gmail.com. Also visit my website, embracethestains.com, and like me on Facebook and Twitter as well too, if you want to continue to follow me or even ask questions from there, or my email as well. So thank you guys. Thank you. God bless. And as always, embrace the stains that God has given you, because they're not mistakes. They're the masterwork of who God has called you to be, and that's your life. So thank you so much. God bless, and